Hi there, I'm Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu, and this is the Bonsai Stuff podcast. It's a privilege to have your company, and this is the 41st episode for 2023. In this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's been going on around the yard, what I've been involved in the last week. There's been lots of stuff going on, hell of a lot of stuff, and I just want to tick off on a few things that might help with you and your bonsai around your yard at the current time for us in the Southern Hemisphere in downtown Australia. And also just talk about a few things, a few concerns that have been getting messaged through to me lately about yellowing leaves and yellowing foliage and all that sort of stuff. So I just want to put some minds to ease with regard to a few things there. And just talk about, as we head towards summer, we're sort of coming right to the tail end of spring now, just some work that you should be doing, some pre-summer pruning, as well as things to look out for with your pines. It's going to be a big important time for Japanese black pines for us with decandling just around the corner. So I just want to tick off on a few things there as well. So strap yourselves in and let's get into it, eh? Right, so a couple of things that I've been working with, going through this week in my yard and around my system and other things that I've been involved with. I've talked about my watering system before, and we've rattled on about summer coming and hot weather and what we need to do to be ready for it and prepared and all that sort of stuff. And something that keeps going through my head, it's a bit of an OCD thing, is flaws in my system or weaknesses or vulnerabilities, because they truly come to the fore when you least expect it and when you least want it as well. It's always the hottest time of the year. It's always the time that you're not available, or it's New Year's Eve and you're 3 cans into a good night and suddenly things start to fail. So I always plan around making sure that I've got as many bases covered as I possibly can. And I don't know how many years I've been through this same process in my head, but you know what? I keep finding things and I keep coming across them after all this time. It's like, why didn't you think about this last year or the year before or the one before that? There's differences between failure because of age, say a sprinkler head pops or, deteriorates and cracks or whatever it is. That's different. But, trying to find actual flaws in my system as to where I can be exposed when I'm least expecting it. Those things get to me. And what I wanted to talk about was, I've got this great watering system which I've talked about. If you're interested, go back to an earlier podcast and have a listen. But I love it. It's really good, and I'm going to talk more. I've been installing them with customers and encouraging customers to get them and providing heaps of information, and the feedback's really positive, which is great. But I was looking at the system thinking, okay, so the system itself is an automatic system. I can have it on timer. I can manually trigger it. I've got all these zones. Water is connected under pressure to a solenoid system, and the controller just basically says open, close. That's it. So it's really simple, really easy. All right, so where are my vulnerabilities? The wiring, is the solenoid going to jam open? What if the hose blows? All that sort of stuff. Going through all those different things. And then I come back to it and go, okay, so when I'm not available, what's going to prevent me from having this work? Like, I've got cameras in place so I can see when it's not working. Like, it tells me it's working, but I can see when it's physically not working. That's all covered. But it all comes down to your Wi-Fi network and the internet. And why I like this system that I've got, I can have it so I can run it manually, but I can also have it so it runs automatically. So if the Wi-Fi dies, then bang, an automatic system kicks in to say, yep, always run for this period of time on these days, whatever it is, at these times, multiple times of the day, whatever. So there's a nice backup there for it, but I don't want to run on the backup system. I want to run on knowing it's working and having it work correctly. So it all comes down to a pinch point or a vulnerability based on the internet working and my Wi-Fi. So I was thinking, okay, let's just go through a scenario in your head. You've gone away for a weekend, for a couple of days. Next year, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on too, about what been planning for 2024, and I'm going to be away a lot, like backwards and forwards, traveling all over the country to see all you beautiful bonsai people at different times, which is awesome. But I've still got my system, my trees to look after during that period, and that's what this all came from. Was there's some big trips planned, and they're really important times of the year. So how am I going to make sure this is right? So anyway, it comes back to the Wi-Fi and the internet. So I thought, okay, I can have all the different things plugged into Wi-Fi switches, but if the internet dies, how the hell am I going to tap in from anywhere around the globe to see that my system's working? So I started thinking, okay, so what is there? There's got to be some way of rebooting the connection, the modem, the internet, and the Wi-Fi system. And found a beautiful little switch that cost me about $60-$70, so next to nothing really in the scheme of things, for an internet rebooting switch, which is an absolute godsend. So what it does is you plug that into the power, hook it up to your local network, whatever, so it's got access to things, and then this switch, you plug in, a power board or something like that, and you plug in your most important stuff, so your modem and your Wi-Fi router. And what this little plug does, which is really, really smart, it constantly pings a couple of websites. So it says, you set it up yourself, but you say basically every 5 minutes, try and get to, bonsaimatsu.com. And if you can't, then try going to google.com. And if you can't get that, then automatically run a restart of the switch. So power down, wait 2 minutes, then power back on again. And it's like, that is so simple, but so effective. And I thought, you can manually test it to say, hey, are you working, not working, whatever. Anyway, I was sitting down the other day and I thought, I'll just check this thing. I looked at the system, it keeps a log, because I subscribe to... because obviously if your internet and your Wi-Fi is dead, it can't send you a message. It can't send you an email to say, hey, your system's down, because it can't get onto the internet. But if you pay this subscription thing, which wasn't much, I think it was about $25 a year, then it will send you a live message saying, hey, listen, your system at home is down. We've tried restarting or whatever. Anyway, I look at the log, bang, it had done it the other day. During the middle of the day, the system had died, and did a restart and everything was back up and working. It's like, that's amazing. So then I thought, okay, so what other vulnerabilities have I got? I've got, 2 different watering systems. I've got a separate Wi-Fi set up for just my watering system, so I don't crowd it with, my kids streaming God knows what on YouTube. And I've got another one for my camera system. So it's okay, well, if the cameras don't work and you're sort of, other side of the country, how are we going to restart that? Because there's not always going to be someone at home to do it, but it's really important. So then I go and thought, okay, well, if I've got a switch which is going to restart my modem, my internet, and the Wi-Fi, the general Wi-Fi network. So then if I go and buy these Wi-Fi switches and I tap them into that Wi-Fi network that's just been able to be restarted, then I can manually go and say, okay, well, the watering controller for, my 4 zones around my workshop, it's not working for whatever reason. All right, I can quickly do a restart on that as well. And it's like, and that cost another $60-$70. So for under $150, I've got it now that I can be anywhere around the world. As long as I can get data, I can tap in through my phone, and if something's not working, I can run all these restarts. And that was for me. So it's completely, you're not worrying about laying irrigation cable or spray heads and, will this get watered by this zone or that zone? It's like, come back to the real basics. If this jams and, you get onto IT support and it's like, yep, turn it off, turn it back on again. How the hell are you going to do that? So for under $150 now, I've got that gap in my system fixed. And I know it sounds a bit nerdy, but I'm absolutely stoked. It's like a vulnerability that I've never been able to fix, and I cannot tell you that on those beautiful hot summer's days when I've decided to jump in the water and have a surf, and you get out and try and check things, it's like, oh, God damn it, it's not working. how do you fix it? You can wait. You can ring everybody, hey, can you go around to my house and just pull this plug out and put it back in for me? Or, yep, give me the keys. I'll be off. I'll be back in about 5 hours once I've done this round trip to pull a plug out and put it back in. Anyway, for $150, that headache now for me is gone, based on this thing working. But hey, look, so far so good. So it was it's a massive win for me. And if you are going down the watering system path, then it's probably one of those things that you need to consider as well, because it's, as I said, I don't know whether it's my OCD kicking in, but it's just this, I'm always looking for vulnerabilities and pinch points and weaknesses in what I do. And that restarting of the system seems to have been a bloody massive one for me that I couldn't get my head around. And yeah, good old quick Google search, and there's probably people listening to this going, yeah, those things have been around for ages, those internet rebooters. And it's like, okay, thanks. Send me a message, let me know next time, because I tell you what, it took me hours of trying to nut down what the exact search term was. But if you're listening to this, then if you do want something that I think, in my short couple of days of having this system and getting it going, if you just Google internet rebooter, I'm looking at the little box for the plug now, not sponsored by them by any stretch of the imagination. So please do your own homework as to what you got to get. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but it's called Keep Connect if you're interested, and it's so far so good. Like I said, it's got this backup subscription system, which I wish I didn't have to pay for, but hey, for $25 a year, what peace of mind when you consider how important our trees are to us. So there you go. That's definitely one that's been playing on my mind, and to now have it sorted out and to be able to spread the word to everybody too that's got these systems, because that's the last thing you want. You don't want to have to pay the ultimate price for these systems, and that's why like I've said before, by doing your research and thoroughly getting the right system. And yeah, look, they aren't cheap. Like there's no way you can use the word cheap and bonsai in the same sentence for anything. It's just not the way it works. But reliability, that's the main thing, and I remember a long time ago seeing things, or messages on online forums and stuff like that about being chained to your trees. And I was talking to people the other day, and it's like, I haven't had a holiday for years. These trees, it's like, seriously, go and spend the money. It might cost you a few bob to get it up and going, but once it's done, it's like, the veil lifts. It's like, sun shines down through the clouds, and it's like, oh my God, now I can actually have a life and make sure that my trees are looked after. So, yeah, like I said, if you're interested in it, have a listen to a podcast from a little bit earlier on about the watering system, and you'll get all the goss on what I've done. So, what else have I been doing? And talking about that, I've been contracted by somebody to put in a big system, one of these watering systems, and it's been great. Like I said, mine started like a Frankenstein thing, where as my yard grew, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I sort of had to keep putting on components to it. And I'd always wish that I could just start fresh, just rip it all out and say, bugger it, I'm going to do it properly and start again. And this big install, it's on an enormous block. It's running multiple lines. It's covering trees on podiums, displays, whatever. And it was actually really good, because the best work that I did with it, I've had sleepless moments for this system, thinking about how to put it all together and how to integrate things and where to run the lines and how to minimise bends in the hose and keep water pressure and coverage, and this one will cover that and that one. And it's actually been great to actually put it all together with the great controller and a really good solenoid system and just putting it all together. And that first time that you sort of sit there and go, okay, now I've done your watering system and we've still got a little bit more to do with it, but let's just test it. Give me your phone, download the app, create an account, right, link it to your controller. Right, let's name this zone, whatever, bonsai displays, whatever. It's like, okay, turn the tap on. Right, so now hit go on that. Run it for 2 minutes, and all of a sudden you hear that sound I hear when the water starts pumping through the solenoid, because the solenoid's open. It's like, success. And the customer's relief too. Seeing them, they're the relief they get knowing that these systems work and that they can suddenly go, oh my God, now I can do my job properly, or now I can, not panic when it's, when it's those hot days or when I'm away or when I can't be here to water my trees. I can still give them exactly what they need, and make sure it's all right. Well, that's what I've been doing a hell of a lot of. I've had workshops, great people through the workshop as well, and working on bucket loads of trees at the moment. It's really good. Finishing up candle cutting for the season as well. I try and make sure that by mid-November I've got it all done in my yard. Obviously it'll be different for you guys wherever you are as well, but if you've got those single flush pines that it relates to, not white pines but other single flush pines, then it's, for us heading towards summer in the southern hemisphere, it's a pretty good time for me down in Melbourne to be doing it. So I'm wrapping up a lot of that sort of stuff. Had a demo this week at a bonsai club too that I just love. I seem to get there once a year, and the group just grows in enthusiasm and patronage as well, and their commitment to bonsai and focus. I really love it. So it was actually nice to talk about Australian natives as well, and to style a few Australian natives and to talk about my approach as to how I look after them and style them so they get a real feel. And there was a question about, or a statement, about how do you sort of style them so they don't look Japanese? And I don't think that I deliberately go to style anything to look Japanese. I talked about the tree database that I've got in my head. And it's the species, the more you can get out there and see them, more you can get to botanical gardens, or even when you're driving. It happens to me all the time. I walk down the street, and see something and sort of stop and look, and I must look like I've got something wrong with me for people walking past or whatever. I'll be on a run or be, tearing along and, listening to tunes and pounding the pavement. All of a sudden I'll come to a beautiful tree and I'll just stop there in the middle of the path, and I'll be up looking at the structure of this thing and thinking, oh God, look at that, and if I just took that branch off there, imagine how much better this tree would look. and people must just walk past going, this guy's having a seizure, something's wrong with him. But that's how I build my database. It can be pictures online, it can be photos in magazines, it can be, your experience going around other bonsai nurseries, bonsai shows. I've talked about it before, but that's when it comes to Australian natives, that's the sort of image that I conjure. How do I, I'm working on a casuarina, a she oak, and it's like, how do I remember these things? How do I like the look of them? And it doesn't matter to me if it's in a pot or if it's in the ground. It's an image that I conjure and go, yeah, I really like them when they sort of grow like this. And that whole notion of the cookie cutter crap is rubbish. I don't think that any two trees ever in the world have grown exactly the same way with branches in exactly the same position ever. And, I'm sure there'll be examples, so please don't send them to me. But, each tree's individual and unique. And, you might think about pines, styling them with the branches coming down and, the deciduous up and down, and, ginkgos, you think about them like a flame. That's how they always seem to be shape, but I quite like that. Like, it's not something that I see as a negative, because that's how I love to look at them. That's how I admire them. It's, so it's not a mimicking or copying. It's how I like them, and it's your style trees as to how you want to look at them, because for goodness sake, they're your trees. You're the one's got to look after them and feed them and water them and give them the love and want to spend time with them. So if that's how you want to look at them, then hey, go for it. That's the way it is. So anyway, I had this great demo. I've also got my juniper intensive running this weekend. This is recorded just prior to the weekend because I've got 2 full solid days of Bonsai Love and getting into it, and I'm super excited. Lots of there'll be carving, there'll be deadwood creation, there'll be pad creation, there'll be apex building, there'll be major bending. There'll be so much stuff. So no, I'm really, really, really pumped for that. And the other thing that's been going on this week too is a hell of a lot of work for 2024. That's been keeping me really busy because there's lots of travel. It's whether it's nothing's or it's getting finalised now, which is sort of the stressful part, trying to lock it all in. But at this stage, it looks like I'm heading from Melbourne to the other side of the country to Perth. I'm heading up to Cairns. I've got Brisbane. I've got sort of places in between. New Zealand. It's 2024 is looking like it's going to be a cracker of a time to get to meet some beautiful bonsai people and really share the bonsai love, with as many people as I possibly can. So I'm really looking forward to it. And if you are in any of those areas, when you see my name pop up on it, please pop in and say hello. Say good day to me. It's that's what I'm there for. And if you want to ask me anything, you definitely can. And if you want to prep me for something before I get there, say, hey, look, this is the tree we're going to be doing at the workshop. Shoot it through. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. So I tell you, 7 days in my bonsai life is amazing. Someone said to me the other night at the demo, someone who I love, and she's a lovely person, and she said, "Did you ever think this would be your life? Did you ever think that that bonsai would be doing this for you?" And I said, "I'd hoped, but it's like anything. The more you put into it, the more you get out. And if I constantly think in the back of my head, just treat people the way you want to be treated, and be an open book. Pass on as much information as you possibly can, and good things happen to good people. So, yeah, I'm loving it. Bring on bonsai. Bring on 2024. So my intention with this podcast is to, one, keep you entertained. So, I get sent photos of people listening to me while they're driving. Thanks, Keith. And as if I said to him, as if being stuck in the traffic wasn't bad enough, you got to listen to me drone on about bonsai and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so the intention with it is to keep it interesting, but informative, and also to the involved part. Of what I do and what I try to do with my bonsai and with Bonsai Matsu is to get involved and just talk about things that sort of come across my plate on a regular basis, and then say, hey, that's becoming a bit of an issue. Let's talk about it, and maybe put a few minds to rest about things. And something which has been popping up lately a lot is leaves are turning yellow and they're starting to fall off on my tree. My olive tree or whatever it is, and it's like, okay. And one that came through recently is I'm worried about my juniper. There's yellowing needles on it. It's like, okay, all right. So, and I just wanted to talk about that side of things with now as we head towards late spring and we're getting towards the summer period, and what's potentially happening with your trees and where you should worry and where you shouldn't worry. So a very simple thing that I look for when these issues arise is what foliages are happening on. Is it on the new stuff or is it on the old stuff? Because if the new stuff, and this is a broad generalization for the sake of the podcast, still look into it, right? So there's my disclaimer. You've still got to investigate. Don't just say, oh, Scott said it'll be fine, no worries. Put your head in the sand. But what you've got to look at is that is it on the new foliage or is it in the old foliage? That's the first question I ask. And when I say not invariably, but most commonly, I get told, no, it's not the new stuff, it's the old stuff. It's like, okay, so if the new foliage is okay on your tree, then don't panic. Don't worry about it. It's okay. And what's generally happening is your tree's making way for the new foliage, like it's dropping the old leaves that have done their job, to get there. It could be caused from stress. I had a pine come through the workshop. Oh, geez, all the needles are starting to die. But as the new buds were starting to push, there was new foliage there. So, yeah, sure, the old needles died off because of a watering issue, but the new buds came through and the problem had been fixed, and so there's new needles there for the tree to survive, to photosynthesize, to go on and live a happy life as a bonsai. So it wasn't the end of the world. And this juniper I was talking about, I said, send me some photos, had a look, new foliage, nice and lush, beautiful, really, really doing quite well. And it's the old needles on what was foliage but is now starting to become a branch. So it's like, it's okay. Yeah, sure, it looks like there's a few yellow patches around the tree, but if you zoom in closer, it's just the older branch it's the older foliage that's got new growth on the tips of it that's starting to turn into a branch. And that's really common at this time of year. It'll go from yellow to brown to falling off. And if you sort of look down along a juniper branch, you'll see that that's really common for how they seem to work. So don't panic about it. Where it is a problem is when it's the new foliage. It's starting to get those issues, and yellowing of leaves could be a number of things as well. So don't, like I said, please don't just brush it away and say, "Hey, Scott said it's going to be fine. I'm in the clear, it's all good. No, you still need to look at it. It could be overwatering. It could be underwatering. You know, they're really common. It could also be sunlight. You know, if it's the inner areas that aren't getting enough sunlight in there, your trees are too dense, then hey, you need to do something about it, because they're going to start dying off. So it could be all of that stuff. So that's really what you need to keep an eye on with the yellowing of leaves. It is something that's really, really common at the moment. It's natural. It's not an issue, and you should be okay if it's on the old stuff. But like I said, hey, get a second opinion. Shoot me a photo if you're dead worried about it. But it's really common around this time of the year, especially like olives. I've seen them a few times where you sort of go along and just tap the branches and all the old leaves fall off. Like I said, it can be. I've got to be careful about how I say it, but in general, it's if your watering's been okay, if it hasn't been too much, too little, you know, it's been the Goldilocks just right, then they should be okay. Especially if the new growth is still pushing on the trees. Don't panic too much. Just have a bit of a review and just say, look, is it just the old leaves going because the new foliage is coming along, or is it a problem with my environment? Because if it's a problem with your environment, lack of sunlight, lack of water, too much water, then yeah, you've definitely got to do something about that as well. Okay, so just continuing on from that yellowing of leaves, and you know, talked about the inner leaves if it's too dense that they're struggling. So now this is just a reminder too, another community service announcement that if defoliating, which is the removal or partial removal of the leaves off some of your trees to let light into that those inner buds, then just be careful. I've talked about it before. You know, potentially, there's nasty hot weather coming at a moment's notice from anywhere, and my big concern is that defoliation creates a second flush of growth, which is really good, but you just need to make sure your trees are protected as well. Things like your figs, your ficus, it's a good time to get into them for us in Melbourne, and in the same sort of similar climates as well as we get towards the warmer area. We have extremes of cold and hot here, so our figs don't do quite as well here. Well, not quite as well. They just have to be managed differently to our northern neighbours in Australia, where they seem to grow so beautifully. We still get lovely figs here. Don't get me wrong, but they definitely wait for that warmer weather to kick in before too much happens with them. And as we're sort of hopefully heading into some warmer weather here, as I look outside, it's pretty grey and miserable, and high teens at the moment. So it's not the warmest day in the world. Still wearing jeans. I'd rather be wearing shorts and a t-shirt. But anyway, as we head towards the summer period, it's definitely time to be getting into your figs with defoliation and stuff like that. So that's just a bit of a service announcement that if you are, my focus this year, being completely honest, is I'm not looking at doing any full defoliation of any of my trees. I'm a bit worried. Bit of a scaredy cat about it, and I'd rather, as I've said in earlier podcasts, I'd rather miss that second flush of growth to ensure the health and vitality of my trees. So I have been defoliating. Don't get me wrong. I've been doing partial. I've been tearing leaves off left, right, and centre to get sunlight into those inner areas, to those inner buds that I bang on about, in most podcasts. But I've definitely been doing that, and partial defoliation on Japanese maples, being very careful with their sensitivities, to make sure that my focus is inner buds, but as a result, as I look around my maples, they're definitely getting due for their haircut, which is the last part of this podcast I want to talk about. Is as we head towards summer, I like to give my deciduous a final summer prune. So hopefully they go into the dormancy period with nice hardened off leaves. There's no fresh new growth there that's going to get flogged by the heat. But yeah, so about now, next couple of weeks, it's definitely time to ensure that you've completed your defoliation for us in Melbourne or in southern Australia, and don't push them too hard. Just don't take the risk. I don't think this year, for the weather pattern that we're going to be encountering, I would much rather have you say, oh, geez, I'm pissed off at you because I didn't defoliate. The weather hasn't been that bad, but I could have got another flush of growth. Then you message me saying, you know what, I did do it, and I got cooked. Look at my poor maple, or look at my poor deciduous tree it's got all this new growth on it. It's just been fried, and you get to spring next year, and suddenly you got bark peeling off the trunk because it's had dieback because it's been exposed to the heat without having the foliage there to protect it with its tissue. So anyway, I would just err on the side of caution. I would rather keep my trees happy and healthy than push them to the edge. But that's just me. You have to do what's best for you and best for your garden. But that's definitely it's time for the defoliation to get put in place and get wrapped up in the next few weeks. Righto, you lovely folks. That's it. That's another podcast done. Episode 41, as I said, for the year. Banging them out. I'm doing these things in my sleep now. I'm doing so many of them. So, no, I hope you're enjoying the frequency of the content. It might be a bit overwhelming, a bit much for some. I know that I definitely have spoken with people that said, I tried to keep up with it and I've just slipped behind. I've got, about 10 episodes to catch up on or whatever. Seriously, it doesn't matter if you jump around. It's sort of trying to keep it topical for here and now. So if you've missed some and you sort of jump into this one, then that's sort of how I design them. They're not. It's not like a jigsaw puzzle where you sort of keep building piece upon piece upon piece. You can jump in and out of the podcasts, and something tickles your fancy, jump into it. If you've got time, listen, great. And I do want to. I know I've been doing this a bit lately, but thank you to the subscribers. There's some new ones coming on board that have been great, really, really fantastic. So it's awesome. I tell you, it gives me a little spring in my step when I get the notification, new subscribers. So thank you very much for that. It definitely means a hell of a lot to me. So as we get into it, we're heading towards the summer. There's things you got to do, and like I said, that at the start, that internet rebooter. I'm holding the box again, shaking it in my hand as I'm recording this podcast because I wish someone had told me about it a long time ago. Not only for my watering system, but just for my life in general. A house full of people that are internet heavy with their viewing, whether it's through TVs or devices or whatever. It's like, Dad, internet's not working again. Geez, I would have loved to have had an app on my phone years ago that I could just go, you know what, I'll fix it. Click the button, done, fixed, it's working, see you later. Rather than, getting these messages when I'm other side of the world, that internet's not working. Well, you know what, go and get that plug, pull it out of the wall, put it back in. Which one? I don't know which one it is. Anyway, fixed. For 60, 70 bucks, it's the best money I've spent. Like I said, I can't stop smiling about it. And I not that I want my system to fail at the worst time of the year, but if it does, I know that I'm covered now. It's that whole sleep easy thing that really I look forward to. That makes me very happy. Maybe I'm just humble. Maybe I'm just a simple man. But it's little things like that. One, I get annoyed because I haven't done it earlier, but now I've done it, I'm wrapped. So I get to this point with the watering system every year. It's always just prior to summer where I think, no, that's it. It's perfect, mate. You can't do any more. Just leave it. And then the next year comes around and I go, okay, so now start thinking about it again. So I'm at the point now where I'm going to stop thinking about my watering system and vulnerabilities and start enjoying it. But I think, I say this every year, but I think I've got it covered. I think I've got everything ticked off. So anyway, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening, as always. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your bonsai love too. It means a hell of a lot. And the bonsai world is I can feel the heartbeat pulsing every time I get a message or an email or someone makes a comment or I hear a conversation or I'm online and someone puts up in the newbie section of the Facebook group or whatever, they make is this my tree alive? It's cooked, and someone comes on and there's the usual rubbish from some of the meaner people in the bonsai world, but then someone comes through with the Bonsai Love and picks them up and encourages them and brings them back on. I go, yep, that's beautiful. I definitely don't claim credit for people being nice to other people, but it makes me feel good when that sort of stuff happens, and if you're doing it, keep doing it because it's awesome. Give your trees a cuddle. Make sure they're getting what they need. Last feed. Get into it. We've got Japanese black pine decandling coming up. If you have black pines and you are looking to decandle, then we're going to get into it. So I'm going to talk. I hoped I had time in this podcast to talk a bit about that, what to look for and whatever else. But next week we've still got time what to look for before decandling. So I'm going to talk about that one first up next podcast. So enjoy. Until next time, as always, happy bonsai.